This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country and join their calls for justice.
Serious danger to Australia.
Hey mates, it's Tom Ballard here again, your friend, the guy for the podcast, with another special edition of Serious Danger bonus content for the 2022 election. We are meeting candidates in the seats that the Greens can and will win, goddammit. This is a series. You've probably heard a bunch of the other episodes. Subscribe, like, share if you like Serious Danger. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes and Spotify if you like what we're doing. We really appreciate that and helps us spread the word. Or if you've got a bit of money, can spare $3 a month, go to patreon.com/Serious Danger AU. That helps us cover the costs of doing the pod and paying our beautiful producer, Michael Griffin. Joining me on this ep are two Greens currently riding the Greensland wave in neighbouring Brisbane seats. The candidate for the seat of Brisbane, you know him from Grindr, Stephen Bates. Hello, Stephen.
Oh, hello. That's my legacy. That's where we're at now. Nothing to do with policies. It's the Grindr guy.
Mainly the Grindr guy. And also the candidate for the seat of Ryan just next door, Elizabeth Watson-Brown. Hi, Libby.
Hi, how are you? So good to be here.
Very well. Look at you, you inner city Brisbane greedy lefties. We thought we'd have you guys together because it really does feel like there's something happening in Brisbane, in Queensland, and with your respective campaigns. These are big chances for the Greens at the 2022 election. So thanks for joining us. And thank you for taking time out of pre-polling. I know you guys are out there on the booths, handing out how to vote cards, talking to voters at the moment. Stephen, what is the vibe out there on the streets? Is everybody happy? Are you fighting with Labor flyers as well, or Liberal flyers? What's going on? What's the vibe like on the booths?
Oh, it's pretty civil, which I appreciate. And I think everyone else appreciates it, especially up here in Queensland. It is just torrential rain. The last few days, so everyone is already in a miserable mood, so they're trying to make things better. But I don't know how you felt, Libby, but usually Prepoll is historically super conservative and very LNP heavy. But I have not been finding that at all. It's very much been, the first 2 days were very much Greens and Liberal. Yesterday was a bit more of a three-way split. But in the last hour, we had probably like 40 or 50 people come through City Hall, and I reckon 80% of them only took a Greens flyer and spoke to me.
Whoa.
Don't want to get too ahead of myself, but things are looking very promising. So yeah, the mood is there for change. People are raring. They're just tired. People are just tired and fed up, and want something different, and that's what we're giving them. So it's very exciting.
Has that been your experience, Libby?
Absolutely, and I'll just give you an anecdote. The other day at Indooroopilly booth, which is probably in Liberal heartland, although we've got a lot of really good supporters there historically, a woman came up to me and said, "Elizabeth, I've voted Liberal for 25 years. I am voting for you this time. I'm just bloody fed up. That Scott Morrison is a fucking asshole. I can't stand him any longer, and I hope you heard that, you Liberal ladies next door." And they're all going, and so I've been getting that message all the time. People are saying, "Elizabeth, you have to win. You have to save us.
Yes.
Get rid of these people." So there's that real sense of, no pressure, but shit. You have to save us. And a woman rang the other day, said, "I've just got your lovely letter. It's so brilliant. I can't thank you enough for running. My whole family of 5 are going to vote for you. You have to win, please." Yeah, so there's definitely a mood of like desperate urgency for change. It's really remarkable. Yeah, would you say so, Steve? Yeah.
The urgency is definitely the key word.
And it's so interesting, hearing that from Liberal voters, like lifelong Liberal voters, right? And this is what we talk about when we say, when the two major parties are so similar on so many different fronts, when politics doesn't deliver any real change and people get so checked out of the status quo, they are not ideologically wedded, right? So the idea, they just want, a better country. They believe in lots of things that we do. For a bunch of very complicated social reasons, they might have just thought that voting for the Liberal Party is what you do, particularly if you're growing up in a safe Liberal seat in Queensland for a long time. That might have just been the message that you've received. But it sounds like, the campaigns that you guys are running and the message and the vision that you're painting out there can seriously sway people to break from that tradition and go for something else, right?
Absolutely. We're giving them information too, of which they've been starved, in this absolute gaping void that the two major parties have left with absolutely no policies. There's nothing there. And we're delivering facts, information, and this is hugely important, hope. That's definitely what we're feeling at the doors, and we've had this huge, door-knocking campaign. As soon as you kind of ask somebody empathetically, so how have you been going, sort of thing, and people might even be the sort of people who say, I don't care about politics, sick of it all, but as soon as you sort of say, how are things with you, what's happening in your life, and you ask an empathetic question, the outpouring starts. They're so hurt. They've been beaten around the head for years now, and it ends up almost like being a counselling session. And so this whole act of offering hope is really, really critical, and it's really landing with people. Not just hope, but a really cogent set of policies that are about reality, that are about a future, that are about science, that are about how we actually deliver a better future. It's such a really important message, and people are craving it. And that's what we've been delivering in the total absence of the old parties delivering anything.
They make it easy for us, isn't it, where they don't do anything. Really quickly, just for people listening and watching, let's just give people a really quick snapshot of the parts of the world that you're running to represent. Stephen, tell us about the seat of Brisbane. What's it like? What kind of community is it? Give us the vibe.
Brisbane's really fascinating. It's so wildly diverse in terms of income and housing, or mortgage versus rent. So we have about 52% of the electorate are renters. The rest, so it's really, really high. We have the highest number of under 30s in the country. In Brisbane, we also have one of the highest queer votes in the country as well. And we've got areas that are very green, very, very liberal, and then sort of Labor sitting in the middle there. So basically everything to the east of Lutwyche Road is sort of 70-80% Liberal primary vote, which is why they've been able to hold on to the seat for so long. And then the rest of the seat is pretty much already Greens, Liberal, and two-party preferred. So it's a really, really fascinating seat. You've got very, very wealthy areas, very working-class areas, and you've got Fortitude Valley, which is very artsy, sort of your stereotypical inner city vibes. But yeah, what seems to be uniting everyone is just sheer hatred for the major parties, and just the whole complete disdain that they have. And look, I relate. If I have to hear strengthen Medicare one more time without any sort of policy to back that up, I'm going to go crazy. But yeah, that's where people are at. They're just sick and tired.
Do you support weakening Medicare, Stephen? Is that what you're saying? You don't want a strong Medicare?
Well,
don't ask me any more details about this. But is that what you're in favour of?
By adding mental and dental into it. That's actually how you strengthen the public services. But yeah, just people are fed up. They hate the Liberals, especially in Brisbane. I would say the LNP voters are much more Liberals than they are Conservatives. So I think that's why, maybe it's the same with Ryan Libby, I think that's why they're so fed up with Scott Morrison, and they're so fed up with the government being held hostage by the Nationals, that even if you're a quote-unquote moderate Liberal member, you're suffering because of it, because the party that you represent is a Conservative party now. It's not a Liberal party anymore. And that's what's peeved off the inner city people is that they want someone progressive. They want someone who's socially progressive, who's going to reflect their values, and they don't see the LNP as doing that anymore. And then I guess that's where we come in, because like Adam said, we have a visionless opposition who have 4 bullet points on their flyer with no detail whatsoever. And we come in and we have this plan that people are craving, and especially coming out of COVID and the last couple of years where everyone's been in lockdown, shut away, hopeless. We're coming out saying, no, things can be better. It doesn't have to be this way. You shouldn't expect it to just stay as it is. We do deserve better. We do deserve more. And yeah, people agree. They're coming out in this hopeful mood. They've seen what the government has been able to do. So we made childcare free overnight. We raised the rate of job seeker overnight. We ended homelessness overnight. These are things we could have always done. We just haven't had politicians that ever had the political will to do that. So they sort of shot themselves in the foot by showing the capacity of what the government can do. But
idiots.
Yeah, but it's worked really well for people, for the community. They're raring for change, and it's so exciting.
Just briefly, I'll come to you in a sec, Libby, but so we should say, so it's currently held by the Liberal moderate, quote unquote, Trevor Evans on 4.9%. It's been in Liberal hands since 2010, the seat of Brisbane. Is there any basic details we should know about Trevor Evans to form a view on who he is?
That sort of sums it up, actually. Has managed to, during door knocks, from my door knocks, I'm surprised at the number of individuals he seems to have personally wronged, which is sort of unusual for an MP. Just not acknowledging them, not replying to their concerns. The big thing that sort of has sunk him was the religious discrimination bill, really. Right. Because he voted against all the amendments that protected trans kids and queer youth, and has committed to bringing the bill back in the next parliament. So that, and because, like I said, we have such a high under 30 vote and we have such a high queer vote in Brisbane, that has, I think, played a major part in his downfall. But I mean,
he's gay himself. We should make this clear. He was the first gay minister from Queensland, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, he is. First openly gay MP from Queensland. So, okay. But it's time to have number 2.
He's the former chief of staff to Peter Dutton. Okay, so that might give you an idea of the sense of his progressive or moderate credentials. But also, so he's the current assistant minister for waste reduction, and is the thinking that he didn't cross the floor like some other Liberal MPs on that particular discussion because that he would have had to have given up his ministry, like his portfolio or something. If you cross the floor from the Liberal government and you hold some kind of minister position, then you have to give that up. Is that part of the deal?
I guess a little bit, but again, at the end of the day, it's not a ministry that he holds. He's just an assistant minister. So I feel like he still has the freedom to not throw his own community right under the bus. But maybe that's just me. But yeah, look, I just found it personally as a gay man unforgivable to do that. Like, at the end of the day, you might want to advance your career, but these are people's lives. This is people's, there's no other way to describe it. These are people's lives that are on the line, having their existence publicly debated. And that's not something I think you should put yourself before your community.
I agree very much. And in no way I'm giving Trev Evans a get out of jail free card there. Libby, tell us about the seat of Ryan, the seat that you're running in.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's almost like a kind of slice of Australia. We're to the west of where Stephen is, other side of the river. Oh, no, we join up on one side of the river. Yeah. The river defines all sorts of stuff, and the topography in Brisbane defines so much. So we've got this kind of slice of Australia that runs from real bushland through outer suburbs into kind of inner ring suburbs and right into the centre of the city. So it's really, it really is an interesting kind of representation of a whole lot of different Australian conditions. It's diverse, like Brisbane, maybe not quite as diverse, although, a lot of it's leafy. We know what that is code for. But we also have... But it's very diverse as well. I mean, there's real struggle. There are people facing homelessness. There are, there's a lot of public housing and other parts of it. I've spoken to people who are actually on the verge of homelessness. So we've got this kind of interesting tension, I suppose, and a really broad, spectrum of representation of Australian conditions. And like what Stephen said, people are really keen for a change. It's been held by the Liberals for yonks forever since it first existed, the seat of Ryan, with a brief aberration, some locals would think, around 2000 when Labor had it for a little while, when John Moore retired. But it's been Liberal heartland for a long time. But I'm telling you, we've also got a huge proportion of young people. I think it's 8.9%, which is higher than the percentage across Australia. That's largely due to, we've got one of the best universities in Australia here, just down the road from where I am. There's major research institutions, so a lot of the people in Ryan are actually kind of part of producing and consuming education. So that's a really big focus. So there's a lot of learning. There's a lot of intelligence. There's a lot of concern about the environment because it's quite green. Topographically, we've got Mount Cootha in the middle of it, and there are these beautiful waterways, etc., running right through it, and bushland. So there are a lot of areas that are very kind of environmentally sensitive, a lot of bush care groups and all of that sort of stuff. So it's a really amazing kind of mix of Australianness, including inner urban concerns. And the other thing about this seat is we have a safe Greens state seat. Michael Berkman, was returned at the last state election with a swing towards him of nearly 14%. So that makes up nearly a third of Ryan, which is fantastic. And in that same state election, the seat of Cooper, there was a 9% swing towards the Greens. So this is a momentum that's happening, and people are really, really concerned about the future. And as Steve said, we're just offering a really good offering, and people have had enough, basically, of the old parties, haven't had enough of that paradigm. And I'm afraid our local member is almost like a symbol of the issues there. So the way he got into the seat was by being sort of parachuted in. We'd had a woman of a certain age. It was quite a good, good, not our politics, but representative,
Sure.
Liberal representation was kind of okay. People thought she was all right. Hebert was basically parachuted in to take her place. And so there's a lot of residual bitterness, nay, hatred probably, from people who've been kind of loyal Liberal voters around that. And it's absolutely almost a kind of a metaphor and symbol of the culture within that party, and people are really seeing that playing out on the ground. And they saw that with Jane Prentice being sort of knifed by Julian.
To explain this a little bit, Libby, so this is a sitting MP who wanted to run again, who lost the pre-selection battle. It's very rare and widely considered to be pretty toxic to get rid of a sitting MP that you have. If someone's retiring or whatever, obviously get a new candidate up. But this is someone to come in and take away your local member.
And the whiff of branch stacking, and a lot of people who had been, Liberal supporters, pretty peeved about that. So again, there's a whole cohort of, let's say, women of a certain age and other people who are just absolutely shut off by that, and it's seen to be a bit of a kind of a representation of the sort of problematic culture within that party at the same time as we've had all of these horrendous kind of things happening in Canberra and beyond about the treatment of women. So, it's symbolic to people of that, and the culture is not healthy. So, I think it's safe to say that the local member isn't necessarily beloved of even people who might have been assumed to be supporters, and there's been that kind of sense of entitlement here, as though, hang on, we own this. So when this is ours, what are you doing? So when Michael won, whoa, that was an enormous shock, but it proved to everyone that it can be done. And Michael is an amazing representative. So again, and he was one of the people who asked me to run. I'd worked on his campaigns, a lot of volunteering. And what we say to people is, look, we just want to replicate that type of representation that you have seen from Michael, absolutely responsive, absolutely caring, absolutely, down there on the ground, listening to people and acting for them. That's what we want to replicate at the federal level. And people say, yeah, that sounds good. We want a bit more of that. Thanks very much. Yeah.
And there are other letters that the LNP is distributing locally, some of which are just plain bizarre. One claims that Julian has been a local fixture in the area for 40 plus years, which is odd given that he'll celebrate his 40th birthday in 2025. This letter also says its author believes, and I quote, Julian is strongly rooted in the area. Now, I can't entirely disagree with that. Rooted is not the word I would choose, but Mr Simmons has good reason to be scared this election. I'll table that one.
So that's Julian Simmons. He's local MP. He holds it on 6%, held in the LNP's hands, 6%. As you say, very solid Liberal seat for a long time, but that change is very exciting. Primary vote of 20.4% in 2019. I think in Brisbane it was 22.4% for you, Stephen. So yes, that swing is on, the move is on, the movement is building, which is great. Just really quickly before we move on to, we should talk about your good selves as well. Stephen, very briefly, I hear that you're a former retail worker and therefore you're not qualified to serve, a nation's wonderful parliament. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and why you're running real quick?
Yeah, still a retail worker. I'm on annual leave at the moment, so
wow.
Still technically there. Yeah, where to start? Well, I'm from central Queensland, lived in a little town called Yeppoon, if anyone knows Yeppoon. Yeah, there's always someone that knows Yeppoon. My grandparents and everyone still live up there. But yeah, I moved down to Brisbane in 2012 to go to the University of Queensland. So I started studying hotel and tourism management there, and then I got offered a job over in the United States at the Disney Corporation. So I moved over there, moved to Florida, for better or worse, and lived there for a while working for Disney. And I was never really sort of political before I moved over there. Nothing will radicalize you more than working for $7.56 an hour in the Society of the United States. So I basically walked in one day on one of my coworkers crying on the floor because she was having to decide between rent and insulin. And that was, just this light bulb moment for me where I sort of thought, wait, what the hell? Why are we earning so little? And then this company is publicly publishing that it's earning $30 billion every 3 months. How in profits? How does not compute kind of thing. So I ended up coming back to Australia and I changed my degree and I ended up finishing with social science with a major in social and public policy. And that's actually how I met my partner. We sat across a choot table from one another in a perfect sort of stars align moment. But and so that's how I finished. Worked in retail while I was at uni. Still worked afterwards because I never really sort of found my calling. I sort of would apply for like public service jobs and stuff like that, but I would sort of think, oh, is this really what I want to do? And then I was volunteering on the state and council campaigns, and my moment for me then was it was just so rewarding and so fulfilling. And then I went back to work after the election and thought, no, I found what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I'm meant to be doing. So, I joined the Greens on the night of the 2019 federal election because I was sick of the shit. And 3 years later, here we are, potentially about to go down to Canberra and shout at a bunch of right-wing nut jobs. So it's exciting.
What a beautiful story. I'm sure Disney is so proud of the fact that they gave birth to a little Greens radical there with their horrific Labor practices. Shout out to the happiest place on earth. Livy, how about you?
Oh, okay. I've got a lot of history. I won't go. It'll take a long time to go through it, but just in summary, I'm a long-term local here. I'm an architect and urban designer. That's been my career. Studied at UQ such a long time ago, was politicised during the Bjelke-Petersen era. Okay, so I was one of the first people who benefited from free university. Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm a boomer.
That's okay.
I'm out and proud. But this is why I want all the kids and grandkids to have the same stuff that we had there. There was a lot of shit as well, obviously. So we had this interesting tension way back then, and we were very political at university because we were living in a police state under Joh Bjelke-Petersen, and we had Gough Whitlam as our Prime Minister. So that was an interesting kind of tension there. Been politically aware and kind of involved for a long time, well before the Greens Party existed. But I've been, as I said before, I've been volunteering for the Greens for a long time, and then this kind of pincer movement started happening around me, saying, how about running? And first of all, I thought, shit, why would I do that? I've actually seen what it looks like inside a campaign. But I just couldn't sit by anymore and witness what I felt was the future being stolen from all of the young people. Not just my kids and grandkids, but everybody's. And we've just got to salvage it. We've just got to save it, and also, throughout my career, which has been very focused on sustainable design and, passive design and an understanding of this particular environment and this climate and everything. So that does sort of highly sensitise you to those issues, but also social equity. So a lot of my projects were very involved in, delivering affordable housing, and proudly I designed the first purpose-built women's refuge in Queensland. Oh, wow. Nobody knows about that because it's not one of the glamorous ones that appears in the magazine pages, because it had to be secret, because you can't just tell people where these locations are because the perpetrators find them. Anyway, a whole lot of stuff through my actual career also kind of pinpointed a whole lot of issues. I sat on various boards and panels over time, advising to different levels of government about, design issues, etc. And it really started becoming super clear to me that it's at the political and policy level that things need to change. There are a lot of great people doing amazing stuff, brilliant people, creative people trying to do good stuff, but coming up against these walls all the time. Another architectural reference, but, like the system makes it impossible to achieve things. You know, it's all set to make it impossible to do good things all the time. So it just became more and more obvious to me that it's those settings that need to change. We need to fundamentally change the whole infrastructure of the way things work, as we all know in the Greens, you know. And then that will allow the flowering of all of this brilliance, of all of these people who've been really trying to do good things. If we've got the right framework set there, we can really capitalise, that's not a good word, make the most of all of the amazing brilliance and talent that is here. Because I always used to say to I'm at the university as well, just as an adjunct professor, but I've always used to say to sort of my students and staff, look, what we're doing is really important in architecture. It's not just things. We're sort of building the infrastructure of the lives that we all share. And that's a really, really important thing to do. And that's how I think of politics as well. We have to design that infrastructure properly for everybody to be able to coexist and to thrive within it. So my little campaign, little saying is designing our future together. And that's what I think of it as. And when I talk to people about, we really need lots of good people and people from across the whole, from everywhere, to actually kind of be able to get together to confront these wicked problems, to actually articulate what they are and to design the solutions for them.
Right.
And that's what I believe the Greens are doing. So there's a real parallel there, I think, in the way that I think about things.
Yeah.
We've got these wicked embedded problems that have been designed. They have, you know, these are decisions, and they're political decisions that have been made on our behalf. And I suppose I just got sick of the on our behalf thing and thought, no, shit, we've got to get in there. You know, we've got to get in there and we've got to collaborate on this stuff and have a really good, intelligent design collaboration and bloody get it sorted. And get it sorted now. No more time.
Bloody oath. Of course. Well, and look, everyone I've talked to, all the candidates we've talked to in this series, everyone's saying the number one issue that everyone's talking about is climate. I know climate is obviously a massive, central platform. It should be for everyone, everywhere, for us as a party, of course. The floods particularly have obviously smashed your part of the world earlier in the year. The rest of the country has broadly moved on in a very depressing way. But I guess I'd be interested to hear from both of you how the reality of that kind of flooding event earlier this year, which was truly devastating for the people of Ryan and Brisbane and lots of other parts of Queensland and northern New South Wales as well. How is that playing out in the climate conversation and in the policy moves when we're talking about climate policy? How are you finding that, Stephen?
We had this moment on one of our door knocks in Windsor. I didn't end up doing the street. A couple of our volunteers did, and they came back just in shock. And I was sort of like, oh, what's happened? And they said, two of our streets we were meant to door knock had been completely abandoned. Right. This was a few weeks after the floods, right near Northeast Street, City Farm. And just whole street gone. So the houses were there, cars in the middle of the road, and just no one. And I think that's such a visualization of, it's the reality of what's happening. And I think that's really what's hit home with people when we're talking about the climate crisis is it's not some 2 centuries away abstract thing anymore. It's now in my city. It's now in the suburb next to me. It's getting close. We had people saying who live in Hendra who have never been flooded ever before, and suddenly they were. And so now that people are sort of realizing, oh wait, this climate change thing it's actually real. It's actually happening, and it's not happening in some faraway land. It's happening at the end of my street. It's tangible. It's very real to me now. So I think people have sort of had a bit of a shock from that, and I'm very wary of saying it pushes people towards us, because you don't want to politicize the loss that people have had from this. But it's just made people so, again, it goes back to this hate fire. It makes people so angry that people are, they're putting all the pieces together now, that when your politicians are bought by the fossil fuel industry, where both major parties accept $11 million over a decade, that's why nothing's happened. They've made a choice, like you were saying, Libby. This has been a policy decision that's been made by the government, successive government, to ignore this problem because they just want to, stuff the pockets of a few fossil fuel executives. And it's now it is coming at the expense of huge swathes of the community here in Brisbane, Ryan, Griffin, and right across the country as well. So it's people's frustration, people thinking, how could they let this happen to us? So again, like you said, Libby, it's about having that counseling session a lot of the time and saying, yeah, look, things are shit. It sucks. And that's why we're here, and that's why we're running, because you deserve better than what you're getting at the moment. And as I'm sitting here, it is pouring with rain outside, and it has been for the last 2 days, and you can feel the nervous energy that people are thinking, this can't happen again. This can't happen again. It just happened a couple of months ago. And that's the thing, when we talk about climate change, it's not just the environmental impacts, but the mental impacts that people suffer from as well. You know, the idea that potentially once every year, your house is going to go underwater. That every time it starts pouring with rain for consecutive days, people get anxious. They start staring at the creeks, constantly refreshing the SEQ water website to see what the dams are doing, because people are scared now. So I think that's why that's why we're seeing these swings toward the Greens. Like, I don't know if you guys saw, but overnight these new polls came out, seat by seat polls, and Libby and I are both 1% away from winning the seats of Brisbane and Ryan. So, you know, it is turning people's anxiety. The major parties can't ignore it anymore. As much as they think they can, they can't ignore it. This is how people feel, and they're turning that into action at the ballot box.
It's pretty exciting. So these polls are showing like sort of neck and neck. The Greens vote neck and neck with the Labor vote, right? The primary. And if you can get ahead of Labor in that situation, then through preference flow, in theory, you guys could win your respective seats. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So it's basically in Brisbane, the Liberal vote has collapsed from 47% to 36%, which is an enormous swing. And it's gone mostly to us and also to Labor. So if you believe the polling, it's about 29% for Labor and 28% for us. So if we get that 0.5% swing from Labor and flip it over, allegedly, yes, we would be looking in a very good position to win the seat. And it's the same in Ryan as well. So it's very exciting.
Was there anything you wanted to add on that front, Libby?
No, we saw those polls coming in overnight, and it was very exciting. We're on 24, Labor's on 25 in Ryan, and the Liberal vote's going south. So it's pretty interesting. It's neck and neck, and that's the sense that we're getting on the polling booths as well. Yeah.
We're going to wrap up soon because you guys need to go back to pre-polling. Need to go out there and fucking win it. And I have nothing on. But something that I really want to ask is that, you know, my obsession is these stage 3 tax cuts. Okay, I was reading, and there was a piece in the ABC yesterday, again, just detailing how much it's going to cost, how it's skewed to wealthy people. And it is just so dispiriting that these things exist and that they are backed by the Labor Party. $184 billion over a decade that's just going to give tax breaks to the wealthy. A fight that the Labor Party has completely given up on, that will make this country even more unequal than it already is, that rips a whole bunch of money out of the public purse to help rich people get richer. I'm just interested in your door knocking, on the pre-poll, in your conversations. Is that a salient topic? Do people talk about that? Are you able to use that to your advantage? These are tax cuts, of course, that the Greens oppose. Or has Labor folding on this actually neutralised that as an issue? I'd be interested in your thoughts on that. Maybe Libby, if you have anything to say on that.
Yeah. The tax conversations that we often have is the whole idea of, you know, that people really do respond to is taxing the billionaires. You know. Right. But I have overheard conversations again at the booth from my lovely Liberal Party people who are sharing the booths with us, talking about, oh my God, those ghastly radicals are going to be taxing our superannuation soon. You know, so it's a consciousness within that mindset.
Right.
But a lot of people are then also saying, given Labor's just basically absorbed all of this stuff and is promoting exactly the same kind of stuff, people are saying to us, what are Labor for? You know, so we've had this kind of, you know, refugees from the Liberal Party. We've also had a lot of people who were Labor's base before saying, no, we just can't do it anymore. We can't vote Labor anymore because they don't represent anything, and they certainly don't represent the basic kind of stuff that we were part of Labor with before. Sorry, that's inarticulate, and somebody will edit that out. But you know what I mean.
Now they won't. Now you've said that, they're going to keep it in.
You know what I'm trying to say? The base, Labor base, has been abandoned, and they are abandoning, it seems to me, and we're getting this sense on the booths as well, based on that you know. Yeah, the stage 3 tax cuts and a whole lot of other stuff where Labor's been invisible and just looking like the Liberals all the time. So many of the Labor base have actually kind of given up on them too, you know, and that centrism is, I don't think it's going to play well for Labor in our seat, that's for sure. You know, so we're getting refugees from both blue and red coming over to us because, as I said before, of the gaping void that is policy in both of those parties, but also the apparent alignment between them. So I think both red and blue are losing their base based on that.
Yeah.
But they're looking for, and one of the big underpinning things is equity, obviously, and these issues around tax, but also climate. Climate is the underpinning thing across the whole electorate, and based on that, there are refugees from both red and blue coming to us because of the absolute inaction there. Yeah. So I think we're kind of attracting people who've been rusted on Labor and who've been loyal Liberal over to us because we're the only ones with any cogent policies around all of the things that most people are concerned about.
Stephen, any last thoughts from you?
I think the stage 3 tax cuts is so interesting. They haven't, in full honesty, they haven't really come up for us in this seat at all. But it's important to be able to get across to people that, yes, while that tax cut may sound nice to you in the next 2 months, even though it's very unlikely going to benefit you because you're not a millionaire, it's going to hit you in the form of they're going to have to cut something. That's just what it's going to happen. You can't suddenly drop your income by $183 billion and keep the country in the same condition that it is. And this is exactly why I got into politics because, I've lived in the US. I've seen what can happen and what a country looks like when there's no public support, when there's no public healthcare, when public education is just gutted. And that's the road that the government and Labor seem to want to take us down, is into that Americanization, full steam ahead into neoliberalism. And that's going to benefit quite literally no one except people except the 122 billionaires that exist in the country.
And the politicians.
No one else.
In this article, it pointed out that a federal MP on a base salary of $211,000 will get a $9,000 tax cut out of for 2025. I'm like, that's your attack line, Labor. Don't back the tax cuts. Tell him that Scott Morrison wants to give himself a $9,000 bonus at your expense. On that,
Come on, Labor. Come on. They're feeding it to you. Yeah.
They're just serving it up on a plate, mate.
No, but they're like, no, because that means I also get a $9,000 tax cut. But
hang on.
And if we have to sell off Medicare to do it,
I'm part of the ruling class as well. I forgot.
It just drives me crazy because rich people benefit from a more equal society as well. Less poverty, less crime, all of this. And it's just this obsession with self-interest and Americanization is what we have to stop.
Absolutely.
Because it's not, I personally don't think it's in the culture of Australia. We talk constantly about, mateship and, looking out for your mates and everything like that. We need to extend that into our political system, and looking out for your mates means better public services. It means raising the rate of income support. It means free education. It means free childcare. It means caring about not just your mates, but someone who lives the suburb over that you may never know and you may never meet, but you know that they're going to be secure, that they're financially secure, they're economically secure because you are as well. And I think that is what personally drives me every day. Is knowing that we can create this society, we can create this better country. We just have to actually have politicians who actually are in there and actually give just the littlest shit. Like, it doesn't have to be much. It just has to be a tiny little one. I think it's a little better.
The Greens give giant shits. I don't know if that's a great slogan, but that's what we're going with. You guys got to get back to it. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I really appreciate it. We'll put the links for Libby and Stephen's campaigns in the show notes. Obviously, by the time you're hearing this, we're really close to Election Day. Volunteers are always very welcome. You can still volunteer to hand out how to vote cards. You can still help out. You can still give some money, ? If you have some money to help out these campaigns, that really helps too. Check out the show notes. But Stephen and Libby, thank you so much. Solidarity to both of you. Thanks for chatting to us on Serious Danger.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Serious Danger Australia.